Welcome to Nonprofit Stories, inspiring tales from Silicon Valley. We will explore the transformative work of nonprofit organizations and leaders who are changing our community by tackling some of the most pressing issues facing Silicon Valley. So without further ado, let's dive into this exciting conversation. Today, we welcome Josh Krug. Josh engages, convenes, and builds community, employs diverse methods to animate lives, and catalyzes practices of world repair. He seeks to empower diverse people to experience Jewish texts and contexts as powerful resources as he thrives to build sacred community.
Josh, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, how did it all start?
It all started when I was a kid. I had a very meaningful experience as a kid in educational contexts. I grew up in a Jewish setting in Los Angeles, California, and from a young age, I felt like this was a nurturing and inspiring place to grow up, and I was given these kinds of tools for myself as a learner, as a human, as a seeker that grounded me when I was a child and really informed the choices I would make later on in my life. Some people that I know that I've encountered over the years say, religious education, it didn't resonate. It didn't speak to me. But for me, I had an experience where, it was just so rigorous and so intellectually rooted, so engaged with both the traditional ideas of the Jewish tradition, but also engaged with, ideas from beyond the Jewish tradition. So just as an example of what I'm talking about, as a 16-year-old, I did a AP English Literature and Jewish Thought class that integrated Talmud texts with Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, and the Oresteia, the Greek literary figure, Aeschylus. And, just as a kid, I had this powerful experience that informed how I understood myself and what I understood Jewish identity to be and Jewish community to be. And so really from a young age, I felt like this space, this Jewish experience was durable, that is, was engaged with the world of ideas and really spoke to me as a contemporary teenager. And so that's where it all began.
That's very interesting. So tell us about a life-changing story.
Absolutely. So in the context of the last several years, I've become an educator, and I've had the privilege to work in different contexts as an educator, mostly in Jewish spaces. I have to say, I was very surprised. I went back to my old high school to teach Jewish studies. And one of my 9th grade students, maybe October of that year, he set up a time to meet with me. And I wondered if this had to do with the fact that he did not do well on the first quiz. He did very poorly. I don't think he studied. So he probably wanted to grow and improve as a student and get better, learn the things that I was teaching and kind of grow as a student. So he came to me and we spoke about the fact that he was disappointed in how he was beginning his high school career. But then he shared with me that he felt that the class that I was teaching was intimidating and that he was intimidated by me as a teacher. And I heard him say these words, intimidating, and it was shocking because the way I think of myself is like, I'm not intimidating and I'm not involved with anything intimidating. I'm the most goofy, personable person and anyone would feel comfortable around me. And so as an educator, it was a really exciting opportunity to understand or to begin to understand how I'm experienced by other people, by children, by a student of mine who had failed his first quiz as a beginning high school student, and in that moment, I wanted to make space for him. I listened to him. I sort of nodded my head and kind of tried to make meaning of what he was telling me. And I'm glad to share that in the context of the months ahead, he would devote himself to learning about Jewish texts and the Bible and interpretations. And, he did better. He grew as a learner. But even more, I would say, important to me is the fact that at a Shabbaton or like a 2-day retreat that I was responsible for chaperoning, he was outside on the Friday night and not with the rest of the group, with the other high school students. I went to check on him just to see if everything was okay. And long story short, he talked about how challenging it was to transition to high school, being a new student from a new school, not knowing a lot of people, and soon thereafter sharing, what it was like to be gay as a, I think, 14-year-old and not to have told one's parents, and what does that mean? And at least in my view, in our times, a lot has changed in this country, the world, about openness and acceptance and diversity. But I have to say that as an educator, it meant a great deal to me that I would be trusted to listen to someone at a time in their life in which they were quite raw. This is a very important time in life, high school. You're becoming yourself, and you're kind of thinking for yourself, like, who am I and how am I similar to and different than the people around me? And so it was really an honor to be able to just listen. I felt like it was from a movie that I'd seen, to kind of play that role as an educator. And I just have a great association with that moment, with that student. And he's now, I think, finishing college or something. Like, that's how it goes. These kids, they grow up. What can I say?
Oh, that's very interesting, and that's very inspiring too. What challenges do you face?
Wow, what a great question. And your intuition is right. I definitely face challenges in the work that I do. I think the most important challenge is the aspiration to cultivate belonging across difference is a huge aspiration. It's a huge goal, and one that it's hard to make everyone happy all the time. Hard, if not impossible. So, I work in particular in, I would say, Jewish spaces, or spaces that involve Jewish wisdom, Jewish texts, Jewish people who identify as Jews. And one of the things that's really exciting and interesting is how the Jewish community is becoming more diverse. Folks are identifying as Jewish, and just different kinds of understandings of what it means to be Jewish. My doctoral dissertation advisor had a great question, a great reframing about Jewish identity, which I think is not only relevant for Jewish identity, but is really relevant beyond it. She said, in terms of demography, the study of population, that the question has shifted from how Jewish are American Jews. That's the first question. And in the context of the last decades, we shift to how are American Jews Jewish? So there's a whole new set of possibilities about this identity, about this practice. And so how does one hold space as an educator? Working in an educational institution, how do institutions hold space for that diversity? We have talked, or Jewish folks have talked for a long time about the people Israel, the Jews. And now, Jewish folks, and Jewish communities reflect the great diversity of the world we live in. In a way, this is not that new, but we have an explosion of diversity in the Jewish community. What does it look like to reach out and say, this is who we are? We're so excited to be who we are, to not make people whose parent is not Jewish feel they're less than, feel they're not welcome in the same way. Because if someone is in a community, then we say we all belong. And not only people who look this way or who identify that way, but we all belong. And what does it look like to actually mean that? And I had the fortune of working as Director of Jewish Life and Learning at Kehillah Jewish High School in Palo Alto, California. And one of the 4 commitments that is central to the institution is everyone counts. And so that's the first kind of aspiration or intention of the school. Everyone counts. But what does that look like if, you're not taking APs and you're struggling with your classes? What does it look like, if you're not as good in sports, or if you're good at something but not in something else? I think in a broader level, communities struggle with belonging, with cultivating belonging across difference, because we're all different, and we all want and need different things from the communities we're a part of. So that would be a first answer about one thing that I sit with, that I struggle with. And just to give you a couple more examples of how this manifests. So I chaperoned the junior trip to Israel with Kehillah last year. Powerful experience to be in Israel, halfway across the world, to help students learn about history and identity and politics and religion. And so on one day, unfortunately, some of the juniors didn't show up to the bus on time. They were supposed to be there at 8:30. Some of them were there at 8:50. And my WhatsApp texts and those of my fellow chaperones were only so inspiring to get those kiddos out of bed or out from breakfast or whatnot. So we left from the hotel late. So you might not think it's that big a deal, but of course there was traffic. So we go to the first few sites for the day, and it's all good, it's all fine, and we're nearing the end of the day. We're on our way to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and as it goes, we ultimately get about 15 minutes at the essential, or one of the most important sites in Christianity. And Kehillah is a wonderful and fascinating school, and so different than a lot of other Jewish schools, because it's not only for folks who identify as Jewish. It's for people of different backgrounds and faiths and lack of faith, and so it's doing something different. And so I had some conversations with students after this experience where they said, I expected to be able to spend time in this essential house of worship, and that was the main reason I was so excited to go on this trip. And you gave us
15 minutes.
15 minutes. And what the heck? And is it possible to go back? And, asking really important questions. And so, here I am. I'm not responsible for the fact that the students' peers were late that morning. But of course, wanting to ensure that student and others would have the opportunity to spend time in a powerful house of worship, a powerful historical site, and just sitting with that question, and I mean, the question is not only coming from, is coming from folks who don't identify as Jewish, but also is coming from folks who do. What does it look like to run reflective practice, which is one of the parts of the Kehillah program? What does it look like to run reflective practice in a way that really honors the lineage of Jewish wisdom? When going on walks in the reflective practice program, not merely to walk or to talk with friends, but also to take notice of what's coming up inside, understand that there's some spiritual dimensions in the experience. And what does that look like in traditional tefillah or prayer? What does that look like in short film reflective practice? What does it look like in knitting? What does it look like in the slam poetry reflective practice? I'm trying to give a sense of the ways that students and faculty were exploring the possibilities of helping young people to reflectively practice something. But what I mean to say is that there are those who would say, well, where's the rigor? Where's the tradition in these reflective practices? Where's the reflection? Very nice that you're going walking. It's a beautiful day out. You want to hang with your friends, great. But what's the difference between that and walking with your friends? So as an educator, something to think about. And how does this actually manifest in an actual school or in any educational or any organization, where you have different viewpoints, different perspectives? My colleagues are responsible to run reflective practice. But what if they didn't train in Jewish wisdom for several years? What if they are expert chemistry teachers or English teachers who haven't taught reflective practice or facilitated it? So, in my context, in my position, I needed to help them to feel confident in that work. And so what a great opportunity, but also a challenge, because, as you might imagine, in a school, the main focus is school. The main focus is, how are you doing as a chemistry teacher? Are you helping our students learn about Avogadro's constant? I think I'm getting that right. It's been a while. Are you helping our students learn about quadratic equations or the difference between metaphor and simile? Or in Jewish studies, are you helping them learn about Shammai and Hillel and how different they are? So, I was responsible in the school for experiential education, which is the education that kind of takes place outside the classroom. Someone said to me, and I really like this, I was responsible to tune the noise of the school, the background noise. So when there was an assembly, what would be happening? How would it be happening, right? The stuff that kids are responsible to do, but they're not getting graded on, but is essential for their student, for their experience. So we had to make decisions, what would we prioritize? Would we bring in, sex education? Would we bring in, alcohol and drugs education? Would we decide to do something different with the situation in Ukraine and Russia? So I mean to say, all of these are moments where we had to think about belonging, and how do we cultivate belonging across difference, and how do we seize the moment. I really like the notion of aspiring to be timely to engage in a way that's relevant and also timeless. That is, to be grounded in something beyond just the momentary interests of the day, but to kind of have some kind of a connection with the future and the past in a really serious way.
Worried about the dilemma of selling first or buying first? TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, has the solution. With our guaranteed 24-hour cash offers, you won't risk owning 2 homes or being homeless. You can buy first and sell later. Are you upgrading or downgrading in the next 3 to 6 months? Text PAIR to 408-740-7400 for a free and no-obligation professional equity appraisal report. Exclusively for Nonprofit Stories podcast viewers. For more information, visit TradeMyHome.com or call 408-740-7400. Remember, at TradeMyHome.com, your home is sold guaranteed or we'll buy it.
So how do you collaborate and network to resolve some of these challenges?
Well, I have to tell you that it's a big aspiration, cultivating belonging across difference. So I can't say that we've resolved the issue. I think that if this is my life's work, that'll be great. If I make a dent, amazing. I will certainly try to do so. But one of the things that I care to do is to listen to other people. I feel like so many of us, probably including myself, don't feel listened to all the time. And it's so important to feel listened to feel like someone's on the other side who's present, who's able to, hear you in whatever your experience might happen to be. And I think that a lot of the challenges emerge because people don't feel listened to, and they act out because they don't feel listened to. They don't feel they belong fully, and so I'm not saying that differences of viewpoint or of ideology are not important. They definitely are. But thinking of our country today, for example, I would say that if we lived in a society and a culture that emphasized listening more, I think we would be much better off in terms of the issues of our day, in terms of facing these momentous challenges better. I'm thinking about politics, I'm thinking about business, I'm thinking about religion. I mean, it really goes through different issues and challenges and opportunities in our society. If people feel like you're actually there and you care enough to invest in the moment, then that can be very powerful. And I would share that one of my favorite lines in the Jewish tradition, I'll say it in Hebrew, it's from Ben Zoma, who was a sage from like 2,000 years ago or so. So he says, Ezehu hacham halomed mikol adam, which it means, who is wise? The one who learns from each and every person.
That's so true.
Isn't that beautiful? I just love that idea, this idea that you can have a PhD, or you could have an MBA, or you could have this or that, but you could have a Nobel Prize, but you may not have wisdom, because ultimately wisdom is about practice, is about actually showing it each and every day, and you have to, it's this ongoing process of learning from yourself and your own experience, but also learning from other people and learning from the world and really being open to the world, but just being present with it. And so you can't just get wisdom and have it in your pocket and then go the rest of your life in your merry way. You have to continually work on it. Otherwise, it's not the real deal.
That's interesting. So what is your vision for next 3 to 5 years?
So let me tell you my intention. My intention is to build community. Specifically, I've had the fortune and privilege of running retreats in the past, convening people to engage with Jewish wisdom, Jewish texts, with other people, and to grow as communities. And so I intend to continue to build communities in that way, to run retreats in New York, in Silicon Valley, in LA, in Israel, and really all over, because I know the potential of moments in time to shift energy, to shift, I would say, consciousness. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but to shift the way that people understand themselves and how they orient. And So continually running retreats. I also intend to convene people online, as I've been doing, for text study, that is looking at traditional text and asking, what is this? What's going on here? What is this character up to? What is this divine being or character doing in this text? Is this relevant? What does it make me feel? Does it make me feel happy, sad, angry? Angry with the text itself, angry with something in my own life? Helping people to explore and process the text, and really I would say the text of our own lives as well. Where we're stories, continually engaging with other people who are stories. And so continually running, text study sessions online and also in person. And then also convening contexts where folks can meet with, I would say, really exciting movers and shakers, people who are pushing the boundaries, whether in religious and spiritual contexts or political contexts, artistic contexts. There's a lot of cool stuff happening today. And, each of us, I think many people are in a silo in our world. I'm in tech, I'm in art, I'm in marketing, right? And so what does it look like to bring people together to learn about some cutting edge stuff that is relevant, I would say, for us all? My interest is specifically about, I would say, movers and shakers in the Jewish space, because, well, for whatever reason, I find it exciting, interesting, and there's so much, what does it look like to, rethink relationship with religion and spirituality? What does it look like to rethink, what does it mean to be a citizen using Jewish texts? Just the sky is the limit. There's so much creativity, and I think many folks don't know about that creativity.
That's really interesting. And what advice will you give to other social entrepreneurs out there?
I would say, for advice for other social entrepreneurs, I would say, care about people. Care about people as people. I think that will take you a long way. That is, care about people as people rather than people as, merely consumers. I love the notions from UX design, like, you want to speak to people as, as given who they are, given their experience, their reality. So what does it mean to really take that seriously and to actually care about it? What would Facebook have done if they had, let's say, cared more about the actual lived experiences of teen girls? I don't know the answer. I wasn't in that decision-making room, right? But I think it's important for us all to imagine in an empathetic way, the humanity of other people and their experience in a way that really shows care. So one thing is care. And also it's beautiful and it feels good to care. It's, if one does it, it's a great thing. And I'm learning to do it. I'm not some kind of expert on that subject. So one is care about others. Also, as I said earlier, I would say listen to others. Listen both in what they're saying and what they're not saying. Sometimes people won't tell you exactly what they think, but really try to listen to what people are communicating. I think that's very important. Also, I would say, and here I'm thinking about what one mentor of mine said to me, the importance of being a good neighbor. So organizationally, what does it look like to show up, to think about the ecosystem? Are you bringing pie to your fellow organization? Are you showing up to the community with good intentions, with a good attitude, and with a sense of care? So I guess what I'm saying is both individually as a social entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur to approach things that way, but also organizationally, what does it look like to act in that way? And not thinking, oh, it's only us and they have to like my post, but that's the most important thing. And, ego is part of life, it's part of reality, and we all have those kinds of voices in our heads, right? But I think it's important to try to just show care and to be giving human beings and giving organizations as well. I think your question, Sharad, is a really lovely question because I think it presupposes the potential for learning across organizations and for mentorship across organizations, across people. So I think that wouldn't it be cool if that question or that kind of question was asked more and people cared more, and people learned to care more, because sometimes it can be hard to learn to do that or to actually practice it when it seems like a lot of others are not doing so. Then how can you do it? Because you need market share, or you need to make the promotion, or so, like, how do you incentivize it? How do you make it culturally normal or possible or exciting? I think those are some questions that I would ask, so relevant for individuals, but also thinking organizationally about the cultures that we are in these organizations we're in, because they are not only collections of individuals, they're also cultures, and they're organisms that have their own way of thinking.
That's so true. Josh, thank you so much for your time today to talk to us, and let's stay in touch.
I'd love that, Sharad. Really appreciate your time, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
It's time for our trivia question to win prizes. This section is hosted by our AI host, Kay.
Hi, this is Kay from TradeMyHome.com, powered by Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Your home sold guaranteed, or we'll buy it. Here is our NPS trivia question. With a mission to eradicate global poverty, which nonprofit organization is known for its famous Red campaign? And your options are Amnesty International, UNICEF, or One Campaign. Again, your options are Amnesty International, UNICEF, or One Campaign. Winners will get a $25 Amazon gift card and recognition in our next episode. Submit your entry on our website, trademyhome.com/NPS, or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Only the top 3 correct entries will win.
Thank you for listening to the podcast and acknowledging the impactful work of nonprofits in Silicon Valley. Please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Thank you to our sponsor, TradeMyHome.com, for their community commitment and for making this podcast possible. Until next time, remember to support local nonprofits.